spoilers for what is to come. Hi all, welcome to day 12 of Vlogmas, and today I want to talk about my personal picks for my absolute favorite Christmas episodes of TV series. And to be very clear, these are not necessarily like the best Christmas episodes. These are not like all-time classics everybody must love. These are the ones that have like worked their way into my yearly watching rotation or have otherwise just become tradition for me in some other manner. Literally one of them I act out every Christmas, for instance, so some of these have like really become pervasive for me. My first pick is the Twilight Zone's episode Night of the Meek. And Twilight Zone, I feel like it's associated a lot with like Halloween or something creepy. It normally has a very like disturbing, creepy, dark vibe. And I tend to actually associate Twilight Zone primarily with New Year's Eve. I used to watch the Sci-Fi Channel's like New Year's Eve marathons all the time. That's how I first found the show when I was like 14 years old. I just watched for hours and hours and hours and got hooked. I've probably seen every Twilight Zone episode 2 or 3 times, but for some reason this episode's got away from me. I hadn't seen it for years, and when I did see it, I just became like immediately enamored with it. It is wonderful. It tells the story of a man who is a department store Santa, who is an alcoholic, and instead of being the typical like, oh, the main character in a Christmas special or a Christmas movie is like miserable because he's selfish or greedy or he's disconnected, instead he is miserable and he drinks to cope with the fact that he can't save the people around him. He lives in a rooming house and the people around him are poor and starving and desolate and hopeless, and he can't do anything to fix their problems, and all he wants to do is give them what they want. And with the Twilight Zone, normally it takes things to a dark place. Instead, in this one, it brings him to a better place. And he ends up finding a bag that allows him to reach inside and pull out the gift that is what anybody else wants and asks for. So he basically turns into Santa. And it follows what happens after him, like people not trusting it, people disbelieving it, and what he really wants and trying to figure that out. It's really beautiful. It is sad and dark still. It's very realistic. It's funny because it's like, you know, a completely supernatural show. It's very aware of what is wrong in the world and what can hurt. And I just love the way they twist it, where it's not like, oh, this horrible person is lonely and sad because he's a bad person. Instead, it's someone who's suffering because they're so good, which it's wonderful. It feels magical. It feels different and just so unique and so rich, and the acting in it's wonderful, the writing in it's wonderful. Of course, like I highly recommend this. I love this so much, and I feel like it's not talked about that often, so I wonder if it got away from a lot of other people too. So if you love the Twilight Zone or if you want something a little different, I totally recommend checking this out. My second one is way lighter. It is Johnny Bravo, and it's a Johnny Bravo Christmas. This is actually the second Christmas episode in the Johnny Bravo series, but I love this one for some reason. It is ridiculous. It is so cheesy and over the top. For some reason, Johnny Bravo to me always felt kind of more like great for adults that want to watch something but feel like a kid again. Like there's so many references to like Looney Tunes and the Charlie Brown Christmas special in this that I feel like it really appeals to people who grew up with other things. And Johnny Bravo is just a completely ridiculous character. He's so self-centered and over the top and insane. And this one features Donny Osmond as a guest star who is just ridiculous in this. He is so making fun of himself. It's like this crazy, crazy meta version of Donny Osmond, and I love it. Santa in it is really like kind of snarky and detached and funny. Funnily enough, it doesn't really shy away from the religious angle of the holiday, which I think is interesting considering how irreverent the whole thing is. It's just silly and goofy and cheesy, and I quote it literally all the time. Like I will literally quote lines from this episode all throughout the year, like just the way they like say certain phrases or something. So much of it is stuck to me. It's very, very quotable. It's very cheesy and silly. It's just fun. It's super silly. Like my girlfriend didn't even watch Johnny Bravo much, and I've got her liking the special now, but it is so great. I love it so much. And it's sweet overall. It's not like, you know, the Garfield Christmas special where all of a sudden your heart's getting ripped out and stomped on. It does have like a bit of a message, but it is primarily just for the sake of being like cheesy and silly and grounding. It kind of like almost makes a message so obvious that almost that is a joke. I love it. It's a nice relief if you're feeling like stressed out about the holidays. I love to just put it on to just relax for 20 minutes while I'm like eating dinner or wrapping presents or something. Plus I low-key have a crush on Johnny Bravo, and I don't think I'm ever getting over that. My next pick, and this was hard to pick. It's very hard not to just say every one of their Christmas episodes, because like I literally just sit and watch all of the Christmas episodes in a row usually with this, but it's the Glee episode Extraordinary Christmas. And the reason I'm picking this is because it has a Christmas special within the Christmas special. It is the one where the Glee Club gets to, on public access TV, create their own Christmas special. And they make one that is a combination of the Judy Garland Christmas special and the Star Wars Holiday Special, which is perfection for me. Like, it's black and white, it's done in that very over-the-top, theatrical, stagey 1960s way. They have two characters dressed as Star Wars characters, and to pretend they're not dressed as Star Wars characters for the sake of it. I will literally sometimes skip the beginning and end of the episode and just watch the fake special within the special and try to like pretend that that's a TV special. It's got that like dark humor. It's when like, I know a lot of people say that Glee lost like its like sarcastic, self-aware sense of humor after the first season. I definitely feel like it did keep that up, but just not as consistently. I feel like this episode has a fair amount of it in it, which is really funny because the special is hosted by Kurt and Blaine, so there's lots of jokes about the way a gay couple would have been treated at the time and how they're just holiday roommates. And the music is great, the dancing's fantastic, the cinematography is great, and anything that's like Glee combining Judy Garland and Star Wars in a Christmas special for me, it's kind of like, did I dream this? Am I hallucinating? It's so right up my alley. My next pick, and again, it was hard to settle on just one because I love all of these, but is a Simpsons episode, Marge Be Not Proud. But this one, for some reason, really hit me deep when I first saw it. And I think of it, like, I haven't gone to watch it every Christmas because it was been a little hard for me to find. I even bought like some like Christmas Simpsons collections, but it didn't have this one on it, which really bummed me out. I'm very happy about Disney Plus now because I can finally watch this again this season. What I love about this is I feel like it does a good job of what The Simpsons is always great at, where it gives a character that often is just a joke or a stereotype or just a throwaway thing. It does give them depth, and without cheating the character or robbing them of their personality or outright changing them. In this one, Bart goes very realistically bad. He just shoplifts and gets caught. And the way Marge reacts to it is to distance herself and to be like, you know what, I'm done, and maybe I mother you too much, and why am I even trying? And you watch Bart deal with that fallout of his mother no longer caring, because he is such the type of person to act out for the sake of attention and to be the center of everything, and to see him actually start losing this love that he thought was something he could never lose is really emotional and powerful. And then seeing what it does to the character, and it just sounds really bleak, and it is, but it ends up being very heartwarming by the end and really hopeful. And I think it's very good for people who don't feel like the best people all the time or who are flawed. Like, I definitely feel like it's a good example of like, hey, you can make a mistake and not be a bad person. You can try to become a better person. Like, you can overcome these things. And I love that they let him do that. Like, it would have been really easy to just have Bart become more and more of a joke of himself and just a excuse to have quippy lines and someone to be rebellious and shocking or whatever and edgy. And instead, they still let him have a heart. And I think that's a great thing they do. Everyone bad has, or anyone who is like imperfect or flawed or like the joke characters because they screw up so often, they still have a heart, they still have a purpose, they still have a certain nobility to them. And I think that's what makes the show so appealing and has made it so timeless, really. It's not just funny, these characters are also human in a way. And this one, I think of it all the time. I think of the last scene constantly. I know it's like an animated sitcom, but the acting in the last scene is just remarkable, between the animation and the voice acting and the writing. It just all comes together in a way that is so gripping and really powerful, I think. So this is probably my favorite. I quote, the first episode all the time. I quote a lot of the Christmas episodes constantly. They all kind of work their way in, but I think this is the one that actually got my heart the most. My next pick is the only Friends episode that really focuses on Christmas, and it's the one with the holiday armadillo. The reason I think this episode is so great is because Ross, to me, is a kind of character that is a great character, but a terrible person. And I think the times he's at his absolute best as a character is when his control and his flaws get the absolute best of him, and he just can go straight to this like bizarre, ridiculous slapstick version of himself. Like, I love whenever Ross basically loses control and tries so desperately to regain it, and everything goes wrong. So that's always funny. And then David Schwimmer is just so great at that like frantic physical comedy and the line delivery and that like mix of like desperation and sadness and just this like affronted, how could this possibly be happening to me? And it's so ridiculous. I mean, it's a great example of how sitcoms can be fantastic because they just have the freedom to go completely absurd, especially something like Friends, which really never tries to be that realistic. I mean, I feel like it's grounded in the fact that the characters, like The Simpsons, are all very rich and layered. There's a lot to them and they feel very real because of it. But it also has always had the sense of like whimsy and absurdity to it. And I think a lot of sitcoms need that because like that's what you're watching for. It's an escape thing. This just does it. I mean, I don't know how an armadillo, like it's such a random choice for a costume and a character, and it's so silly. And you get to see Joey and Chandler show their hearts, which I love whenever they do. Like I always melt anytime Chandler gets to be a good person, especially when Joey's a good person. Like I am a sucker for Joey Tribbiani. It's just funny and sweet. I think it's a great chance to really explore Ross and his layers and his complexities, and then to get to see, like, anytime I see Chandler and Joey be sweet, it feels like Christmas to me. Plus, I feel like it's one of those references that when you reference it, it just makes you smile and laugh. Like, it's really hard to not say, I'm the holiday armadillo, without laughing or smiling. Like, I just can't think of it without grinning, which is really nice and I think needed during a really stressful holiday season. You just sometimes need something really stupid to laugh about. My next pick is one that does not make me laugh at all. It makes me cry even thinking about it, but I love it, and it is Lost episode, The Constant. I'm not going to go too into detail on the plot of this one, mainly because I know my girlfriend's going to watch this and she's not watched Lost yet, and I have like spent our whole relationship just shielding her from Lost spoilers. I have to watch Lost with her soon just so I can finally like lower my stress. But this is probably my all-time favorite episode of any TV show ever. Like, it to me is just perfect. I think it's a perfect example of what TV can do and what you can do with writing with something that is serialized. I think it is so powerful and clever and unique and just beautiful. The acting is extraordinary in this. The writing, of course, is great. The editing is phenomenal. Like in the scene that I know everybody thinks of with this episode, the editing is just out of this world. I think if the editing had been any less perfect, it wouldn't have been as impactful. I think it would have still been beautiful, it would have been clever, but this just takes it to another level where it's like, you are absolutely in the moment with those characters, you are feeling it. Like, the editing is such an emotional type of editing. Oh, it's just, I could go off about this forever. I've actually not seen it for a few years. When it first aired, I remember just being like, I had a friend that used to come over every week and watch a show with me and with my family, and we both were just like, the minute it was over, we were like, that was perfect TV. And then the next morning, he woke up and I just immediately was like, do you want to watch it again? He's like, yes. So we just immediately watched it again, and then I spent like that whole week just reading recaps of it and just like reliving it as much as I possibly could. And I've not watched a show again for years now because I'm trying to save my rewatch for rewatching with my girlfriends. I really want it to hit me in that same strong way. I want to have a really strong reaction to it all, which has been so hard. Like, the DVDs are literally like sitting next to the TV and I'm just like, oh, I have to put you in right now. But what I do every single Christmas, this friend and I, for years now, it's a different friend, but every single year we text each other and we do word for word a phone call from this episode, and we do it every single Christmas, and we both cry every single Christmas over it. So this has become tradition now. Like, we won't even talk all the time. Like, we may not talk the entire year leading up to it. We're friends on Facebook. We don't always interact a whole lot with each other, but every Christmas that happens. We just do a quick check to be like, yo, you ready? And then we just act out the scene, and then we cry, and then go back to celebrating. And it is like, it's just become, I can't imagine not doing that every Christmas for the rest of my life now. This is just part of my life. And my next pick is the Scrubs episode, My Own Personal Jesus. I love Scrubs so much, which is kind of weird because I cannot handle medical shows. Like, it took me a while to be able to watch this show because like literally seeing anything medical freaks me out. I can't handle it. But the show is so great, and I think this episode does a good job of kind of capturing a lot of what makes Scrubs so special, because there's nothing in the plot, especially the like drama part of the plot, and I feel like a lot of that story, you kind of know how a lot of it's going to end. You kind of can't see a lot what's coming. Like, the plot's not like extraordinary or shocking, but what is different about it is the talent of the people telling the story. Like, the writing and the acting in the story is just phenomenal, especially Donna who plays Turk, who is like the main character going through stuff in this episode. What I love is, again, similar to the Twilight Zone, it's not someone having a hard time because they're a bad person or because they're selfish or greedy. Like, Turk is hardcore into Christmas. Turk is me. Turk is like reindeer antlers and noses and singing Christmas carols, and like, he is hardcore obsessed with Christmas. He ends up struggling a lot because of all the trauma he witnesses over Christmas while working in the hospital. And I relate to that a lot. It's something that, like, Christmas and the holidays have always been something I've like clung on to my whole life as a grounding thing and a centering thing. My spirituality and my faith has always been something I've clung on to. Like, when I've been in my absolute darkest moments, that's often the only thing I feel like I can really count on, or that is definitely there for me. Like, it's always been a centering thing, but it is so hard to hang on to it sometimes because I'm like too empathetic of a person, honestly. Like, I take everything too personally. I feel everything that everyone else is feeling just too much, to the point where it's absolutely a flaw. Like, that's part of the reason I can't watch medical shows and things, because I just get stressed out seeing people suffering, and I can't shake it from my head. I can't get those feelings off of me. Like, I can't be like, that was a great episode, and just move on. So I really relate to that. Like, it's so easy to start, because like, Turk doesn't just start losing faith in Christmas, he starts losing his faith in general. He's a very spiritual, very religious person, and just to see him start doubting everything and just become someone else. And it's interesting because the other characters in the show are like not religious at all, mocking him for being religious, but then they see the difference that happens when he starts to lose his faith and lose his joy and lose his hope and optimism. And it's like watching that happen and then watching how he tries to get it back. And I feel like it could be so predictable, but again, the acting is done so well, and the writing is really clever. It's funny and silly and absurdist at the same time, but also really grounded and powerful and beautiful. I love, like, and similar to the rest of Scrubs, like, the music in it is different. It's not always the music you expect, but like, it sticks with me. I hear like the last song all the time, and I just go immediately right back to that emotion I had first time watching it. And it's very powerful and very beautifully done, and it's just a very layered, nuanced story that's told in 22 minutes. I love it. I think it's a great short story of an episode. And my final pick, and this is so silly, and this is something I just saw for the first time, but I'm counting it because I can tell that it was like a great enough experience that now it's going to be a thing for me, and it is the Donna show, the episode of Very Merry Christmas. And I just saw, like, if you haven't watched my Vlogmas, I just saw this at the IFC Center. They played it before It's a Wonderful Life, so I got to watch it on a big screen with other people, and like, the show is ridiculous. If you ever see the Donna show, it's completely like over the top and cheesy and just very heightened to the point where it's almost absurdist. I think it can be kind of fun because of that. At least I haven't seen much of it. Like, I've really just seen clips, but like, from what I saw in this episode, I really enjoyed it in that kind of tongue-in-cheek, this is ridiculous way, but it's also fun, And what I thought was great with this is, I feel like so often, and this is a thing that happens with everything. I mean, we could go into the Make America Great Again, but let's not start that if we want to have a Merry Christmas. So often people get like rose-colored glasses about the past and how everything was better and everything used to be great and everything used to be simple and people used to like be there for each other and be kind and take time for each other and not be materialistic and not be shallow. And I feel like we always are acting like, oh, right now is the worst. Things are so terrible now. But what was really interesting to me watching this is what this whole episode is about, is Donna Reed is doing that. Like, decades ago, like Black and White, literally the show that is like the epitome of like what perfection is supposed to be. And she is literally having like a Turk spiral because Christmas isn't what it used to be, and it's so busy and commercial and hectic and not special, and why can't we all just sit around with each other, and why can't Christmas be magical like it used to be when I was growing up? And like, there's all these scenes of like full on almost mobs of housewives on Christmas Eve, like shopping for presents and fighting each other and like crowding each other and like just taking whatever they could because there was nothing left, and just like being completely stressed out about it and talking about how like, oh, I'm buying this thing for my like sister-in-law who's never even going to open the package or has never worn anything I bought her ever, so she's not even going to care. Like, it 100% could be made today, talking about how, oh, we're all too shallow now, we're all too consumerist now, no one even cares about the stuff they get now, we just throw everything out that we get as gifts anyway, what does this even matter? Like, Christmas isn't what it used to be, why couldn't it be magical? But the Christmas we're often imagining now is, where a lot of times we're idolizing, like, oh, what a Donna Reed Christmas probably would have been like. And I think this is really interesting to see that, like, Donna Reed didn't view her Christmas that way, you know what I mean? Like, it was miserable to her in this episode. So I think it's kind of a good reminder that, like, things aren't bad now necessarily because of now. Things weren't perfect in the past. Like, things have always been hard. We've always had to fight to make the world more loving and more caring and deeper and less shallow, and to make the holiday be about what it's actually about, you know, love and being there for each other and supporting each other and appreciating small things and feeling magic and wonder again. It's about that. It's not about buying things, and that's not a new problem. That's a problem that we've always been facing. It's a problem we're probably always going to be facing. And I think there's something really healthy in that, because otherwise I think it's really easy to make it an external. It's like, this isn't my problem, this isn't humanity's problem, this is just the problem with, you know, the world or this group of people. It's very easy to not take any of the blame and to just put it on someone else otherwise. And I think watching things like this from different eras where it's like, this is the same problem, and they thought that their time period that we now view with rose-colored glasses was the worst at the time, and they were looking back at their own past as perfect. I think it's really important to realize that the problem isn't the time period. The problem is more personal, and something that I think is an issue that humanity is always going to be dealing with. Like, I think we're always going to have an issue with humanity being too prone to being shallow and commercial and greedy and self-focused. Like, that's just something we all have to work on within ourselves and help each other work on too. So those are my picks for the Christmas episodes that have become a part of my holiday tradition. I definitely would love to see your comments below for the ones that become parts of your tradition, because I always want to find new ones. And for Vlogmas tradition, it is time to open day 12 of my I'd Rather Stay at Hogwarts This Christmas advent calendar. Maybe now I'll get something Slytherin. Ooh, 12 is so big. Look how big that box is. I'm kind of excited. That's a very Slytherin statement. Ooh. Okay, first off, these are two things in here, it looks like. And I have Post-it notes with a Hogwarts crest. These are so pretty. I love these. I'm not sure how practical they are because it's a pretty dark pattern, but I'm really not sure I care. I really like this. And this seems to be a coaster with a bit of the Hogwarts crest. It's like a simplified version of it, with each house on it. I love this. I'm a big coaster user. I like my coasters to be something that kind of makes me smile and makes me happy. So these are great. I'm super happy. Alright guys, that's it for Vlogmas Day 12. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Until then, be happy, and thank you so much for watching.